Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live, which is around becoming a chartered project professional. My name's Victoria Bailey, and I'm the Professional Standards Manager for the Chartered Standard here within APM. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Nicola and Vijay, who will be discussing the benefits that they've gained from becoming a chartered project professional. Go through some top tips around how to achieve the charter status and their experiences within the process themselves as they've both gone through the chartered process. We also want this to be interactive, so there's opportunity for you to ask questions throughout the session, and we'll be asking Nicola and Vijay questions as we go along. So if anything prompts you for any questions, please do use the comment area to add those in. For those that come through, we will try our hardest to answer as many as we can. So I would like to firstly introduce you to Nicola. So if you'd like to give a bit of an overview of yourself.
Thanks, Victoria, and good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Nicola Benjamin. First and foremost, I am an APM chartered professional. My background is infrastructure projects delivery, and I currently work for Arup, having joined the team as associate back in 2018. Just so you're aware, I achieved my chartership back in 2019, and part of my role within Arup is also developing our project capability. So I work with a lot of people in our team, developing their project careers and helping them achieve their own chartership. So really delighted to be here this afternoon.
Thank you. And Vijay, if you could give a bit of an overview of yourself, please.
Sure. So, hi, everybody, and welcome. So I'm Vijay Luthra. I guess my stock in trade is I'm a management consultant, which is what I've been doing for the last decade for big firms and little firms. Currently with Capita. So my sector focus is life sciences and healthcare, but I've worked across a number of different sectors. I think I became chartered in 2018. It was a little while ago now, so can't remember the exact date, but have been chartered since then and never really looked back.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So if I go to Nicola with the first question, so why did you decide to become a chartered project professional, and what benefits have you found from gaining the status?
Yeah, so I actually started considering chartership. I think it was probably around sort of 2017. It had just there was sort of just rumours that there was going to be a professional qualification for project managers. I'd been working in project management at that time for, I think it's probably about 15 years, and I always felt that I was quite senior within my organisation, but they didn't seem to have the same kind of recognition. I thought, wow, this chartership thing might solve that particular problem. So I sort of looked at it from that sort of perspective, as in, okay, this might be the next step sort of in my career. I actually then didn't do anything about it for a couple of years, mainly because when I looked at it, I thought, wow, this looks really difficult. So I sort of thought about it for a little bit longer. And it then sort of came a time when I was looking to change organisations. And when I moved across to Arup, there was very much an organisation ethos in terms of really trying to professionalise their project community. So it was really just a really good opportunity, and there was a small cohort of us that all did it together. So it was really nice to kind of have some teammates to help support me through the process. But it really was simply a kind of a next step in my sort of career progression, and really haven't looked back since. And it certainly has been a really excellent addition to my CV, particularly working in consultancy. Many of my clients recognise the kind of chartership label. So it really does become one of those things that we put at the forefront. So when we're meeting clients, having a professional sort of project manager with a recognised industry qualification and recognised industry sort of level of competency, has really kind of helped set myself aside and as a business set ourselves aside with other kind of competing organisations. So it's all been part of that.
Perfect, thank you. And Vijay, why did you become a chartered project professional, and what benefits have you found after achieving this?
Sure. So, the first reason, probably not the best reason, is my employer asked me to become chartered. And obviously, if someone asks you to do something, that's never necessarily the best reason to do something. You should do it for yourself too. But I guess the upside for me was about some of the things that we've already spoken about, being able to demonstrate you've reached a certain level of mastery in your profession, being able to credentialize yourself. We've talked about that. Nicola was talking about clients' environments, and Nicola and I are both working with clients, and it obviously helps to be able to go into some of those conversations with an independently verified mark of quality attached to you. So that I guess is the why. And then in terms of benefits, I think the biggest one has probably been self-confidence. And so while in the past I've done some of the other sort of other project management qualifications that you might that are available, the chartered process is very reflective. So when you're filling out the form and then when you're going through the interview process, you really have to think about what are the things that I've done in my career that help me to demonstrate I've reached the level that you need to have reached to be able to become chartered. And I think that's a real confidence building process, because you're thinking through all of, sort of in my case, sort of about 10, 15 years worth of experience in project management, where you're thinking through all of the things that you've done. And it's actually really, really good to be able to reflect on those experiences and understand that, yes, you've reached the standards necessary to become chartered in the competency areas that the APM has set out for CHPP.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So in terms of sectors, how does the charter standard fit into your sector? So if I could go to Nicola for you first.
Yeah, sure. So, I think coming from a infrastructure delivery background, any type of kind of project accreditation has been integral to kind of the sector. And I remember, the very early stages of my career where, for instance, I think it was Prince 2 that was kind of the gold standard. It was always, kind of, there was always a need to kind of, recognize that you were following some kind of a sort of formal sort of process. So, for me, I think sort of charter standard has really been the next step in that evolution. And I think really the sector had been crying out for a much more rigorous qualification. And again, I think, as I sort of mentioned in my first answer, there was definitely a gap in kind of recognizing that sort of professionalism. And I think, as as an industry, there have been many instances where that mark of quality, has very clearly been needed. So I think chartership has very much been part of that process to kind of deliver sort of rigor and quality, and a clear standard of working. So I think, certainly from a sort of construction built environment and sort of major project delivery standpoint, I think it's been an absolute game changer.
Perfect. And Vijay, in terms of the sector that you work within, how does it fit in the sector?
Yeah, so project management is really important in life sciences and healthcare from across a variety of different subsectors. I don't know if there's anybody on the call who works in the NHS, but the NHS places a big focus on project management, and there's increasing demand for project professionals who are chartered. I guess probably a little bit less so in the life sciences space. And I know there are some big life sciences organisations. I think GlaxoSmithKline is one of them that highly values the chartered standard. But I think its profile is still building in that space. I mean, what I would say is that I think the CHPP is, as Nick has alluded to, it's robust as a standard. You can walk into a teaching centre somewhere, spend 5 days sat in a classroom learning how to do Prince 2, and then you can come out and there's nothing to stop you from calling yourself a project manager, whether you have the experience to manage projects or not. CHPP is a test of experience if you're going down the experience route. So you've actually had to have been under fire, so to speak, to be able to pass your experience CHPP assessment. So I think to Nicola's point, there will be more and more demand for CHPP as the benchmark, the gold standard, as it were. I used to work a lot in government, and the government project profession has more and more started to ask for CHPP or equivalent for a lot of roles, particularly for the senior roles. So I think what government does tends to then often be followed by other industry sectors.
Great, thank you. And in regards to the chartered project professional standard, how does that fit in with other project management qualifications? Nicola, I know that you've talked about the progression within your organisation and having that development structure. So is that key?
So really good question, Victoria. So we work very hard to empower our project managers to really kind of take control of their own kind of career development and progress. But the backbone of that is having, first of all, the APM competency support piece to go with that. And then obviously the various qualifications leading up through to chartership, which is a really structured approach to managing your career. And I think certainly now we're seeing much more kind of early careers coming through the door and actually wanting to develop a career in project management, whereas when I started quite a few people kind of fell into project management. So you tended not necessarily to have started out with kind of a grand plan. So I think that's really kind of moved the industry forward, and I love seeing some of our graduates and apprentices come onto our programs wanting to be program directors, going forward and looking to the future. And I certainly think having a range of qualifications that you can almost start looking at from day one and start, building on those foundations, I think is absolutely great. So you're suddenly coming from a perspective where, even our newest sort of project managers, our, apprentices, our graduates, they're starting to talk in that project management language, and they're starting to understand those technicalities. And I know as they go through their careers, they will then build on that, adding in the kind of professional practice and experience. But they have those foundations and they have that framework that they can build around. So for me, it's great. And then the other piece that I think is great about the kind of APM approach is that you're able to kind of come at the qualifications from various different positions within your careers. So I very much work with lots of early career individuals, but also lots of experienced project managers that may not necessarily have gone through progressed through that framework, but have had that experience over many years on varying projects. And it's great that via the CHPP you're still able to recognize all of that experience and all of that excellent professional practice, and still be able to kind of encompass that within a great qualification.
Perfect. And Vijay, in terms of other project management qualifications, in your experience, how does that fit in with other qualifications?
Yeah, so I guess when I came to CHPP, it was very different to anything that I'd done before. So I've done Prince 2, I've done MSP, and those are much more classroom based, textbook based. You sit an exam at the end, and then when you find out whether you've passed the exam or not. So they're very theoretical, which I think it's, that's okay, but actually project managers are made managing projects, and so as I alluded to, that sort of the process of preparing for the CHPP submission, for that experienced hire route. Obviously, if you're on the graduate route, you'll be doing slightly different things, but for the experienced route, you're having to undergo a great deal of reflection to understand where your career has taken you, what are the things that you've done, what have you achieved, where can you demonstrate you've met the standards that you need to meet to become chartered. So it's very different in that respect, because I think it's definitely a benchmark for me. So if I'm hiring for project professionals now, I'll be looking for either CHPP, if I can find people with CHPP, or an equivalent standard. And there aren't really any equivalent standard qualifications out there. As I say, Prince 2, MSP, exams, textbook based. It doesn't necessarily tell me what experience people have had, and whether they can deal with A situation or B situation. So for me, it's the CHPP, I think, stands alone.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And before we go to any questions, just want to ask you both what your top tips are on how to become chartered, and going through the process yourselves. Is there any tips that you can give to others about making the process more sort of streamlined? Nicola, if I can go to you. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, Vijay.
Nicola, go on.
Sorry. Okay. Brilliant. So tips. So my starting position is probably to have a look at the competency assessment as a starting place, really to get an understanding as to sort of what your kind of current sort of levels are across each of the sort of different competencies, and that's really and the reason I suggest that is because then you can really kind of proactively and strategically look at what you need to do to cover off some of those gaps. So from a very practical sense, I think that's sort of a really good sort of thing to start off with. I think separately, the other thing that I would say is don't be daunted when you kind of first take those first steps in terms of taking a chartership. It does look quite complicated, and there does feel like there are lots of things to do, and you might be wondering what particular route that you need to take. And what I would really suggest is go onto the website, read through it, but don't be put off. It is a really worthwhile qualification to achieve. Like most things, it is rigorous, and the effort that you will put into doing it is well worth it. But you do need to put effort into it. So don't be put off. And then the last thing is just to speak to people who have perhaps been on the journey. Firstly, because they'll probably have gone through a similar process of kind of thinking, okay, how do I do this? So getting their lessons and their experiences is really helpful, and getting support that actually, this is very achievable. And then secondly, just kind of working through some of the things that, from a practical sense, of things that you need to do. So thinking about which particular route is most suitable to where you are in your career, thinking about people that can give you support in terms of actually, doing really practical things around your submission. So, finding someone that can give you a little bit of support and help through that, I think is, for me, I certainly needed it when I when I started, and certainly a lot of the people that I work with, just having that support is definitely a real kind of bonus and support sort of going through it and actually achieving it.
Perfect. And Vijay, in terms of your experience, what's any top tips that you have that can support individuals?
Yeah, so top 3 tips, echoing what Nicola said. I would find, if you can, find somebody who's recently been through the CHPP process to coach and mentor you in your own submission. I was very lucky in that I had someone who'd recently been through CHPP who not only held me to account and kept on chasing me to meet dates and so forth, but also rigorously reviewed my my submission. So I think I probably rewrote not the entire thing, but certainly quite significant sections of it about 3 or 4 times. It was very frustrating at the time, but actually it was a worthwhile experience because I had the benefit of my coach's experience saying, well, this is similar to what I wrote. You need to, you sort of need to tack a bit to be able to hit the spot to clearly articulate you're meeting the competencies. So there's that. Second would be it's quite a big undertaking, so I would suggest chunking it down and be kind to yourself. Don't necessarily assume you're going to do it in one weekend. For me, I think it probably took 6 months from beginning to end to get it submitted, and that included doing some writing in group sessions with other people at the company who are also applying. So don't expect that you'll be able to finish it very, very quickly. And then I think the third thing would be, don't be disappointed if you get a knockback the first time. I believe it's not uncommon, and APM colleagues will probably have stats, but if you haven't quite got something right the first time, that doesn't mean you're never going to be chartered. It just means you maybe need to go back, reflect, and perhaps pull something out a bit more strongly in order to meet any gap that they've identified.
Yeah, would you mind, Victoria, I just pick up on that, Vijay, because I
Yeah,
think that last point in particular, I think was a point really well made. And I just note from my experience, in particular, very experienced project managers tend to kind of fall into that category. And again, I wouldn't completely agree with what Vijay said. I wouldn't be put off. It's a reflection that actually, it's a very specific standard. And while particularly very experienced project managers, you have all experience, you've demonstrated that you're a good project manager, but there sometimes is just a bit of tweaking that you need to make sure that you are sort of fully aligning that experience to sort of the framework, which is quite specific for APM. So yeah, I'd really agree with that, and to kind of focus on kind of that transition, and ensuring that you're kind of capturing your experience but in the language of APM, which is what is being measured within the qualification.
Perfect. And in terms of support, so obviously yourselves have both gone through the process. Just for individuals listening into the session today, APM does have support services available to you. So you're not alone in the process. As a member's benefit, there is coaching and mentors that are available to support you. So if you are doing this individually and not part of an organisation, we do have a process in place to support you with that. Also, we have the support services through one of our accredited providers, which provide webinars, which actually breaks down the process. So the chartered standards, the applying itself with the application and the interview stage. So they're free to anyone to join, and it's worth signing yourself up if you're interested in becoming a chartered project professional. We also have a matrix tool. So I can see from some of the questions we've got on there about how do I know if my projects are complex enough or whether I can achieve chartership. So within the matrix tool, it splits down the characteristics of what we require within a project. So you'll be able to use your experience and be able to see whether you can tick off against those characteristics. And then as you go through the assessment tool, it demonstrates which projects would be best to use in your application, and also the elective competencies that you want to go through. So it's a really helpful tool if you're looking to become a chartered project professional. Even if you're early on in your career, you can look at seeing how you can sort of develop your role to achieve some of the competence criteria. So just a couple tips from me as well when you're in the process. So just going over to our audience for any questions. I can see from a few of the questions we've got on here about different qualifications and the recognised assessment. We have the recognised assessment list on our website. So if you've done a qualification previously, you'll be able to see whether that's obviously been recognised. If not, don't be disheartened. We've obviously got the route 3, which goes through the experiential route. So you don't need to have a qualification to go through and still be successful. Just having a look at some of the other questions. So this is a question for the audience. I think, Nicola, if I come to you, what was the hardest part of the application process that you felt?
So for me personally, I think it was doing the interview, and I think at the time that I did it, it was a face-to-face interview. So you had the added nerves of kind of, facing a panel of kind of, seasoned professional, sector professionals. So for me, that was really nerve-wracking because it was the first time that I really kind of had to justify my existence as a project manager to a group of peers. So that was probably sort of quite nerve-wracking for me. I think the submission, so the first part, which is kind of your written submission, I found that really, really interesting. I thought it was great. It was a reflection over what was a 15-year career, and actually it was really great to kind of look at some of the experience I'd had, and the kind of technical aspects that you don't really think about every day, but actually looking back, it's like, wow, I've done this on some great projects, but for me, having that face-to-face interview was really nerve-wracking. I know now that the majority are all now virtual, so I think that's probably reduced the stress a little bit, but I remember being very nervous on the day of that interview.
And one of the other questions is, if you're at the start of your project management career, what steps do you recommend taking to achieve this chartered status? If I can go to Vijay.
Sure. So the question was, sorry, about being at the beginning of your career.
Yeah, at the beginning of your career, so progressing.
This is probably a question I'm going to struggle with a little bit. So I know there are lots of organisations out there which have adopted effectively a graduate programme which gets you through to CHPP. I think that BP is one of them. So obviously being in one of those organisations is helpful. If you're not in one of those organisations, which the vast majority of people won't be, then I believe that there is an academic route. Is that right?
Yeah. So you can go through the qualification route. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Just having a look at some more questions that have come through. We have some questions about the differences between the chartered project professional and the PMP. It's basically your preference and your organisational's desire and where you want to go in your career as to what you value getting. So we're not enforcing you to become a chartered project professional, but obviously in the marketplace demands may change over time. There hasn't been a chartered project professional standard previously. So obviously we're very new into this, so it will take time to sort of build that up and see that value within different organisations. But it's the preference of the individual, whether you find the value and what that's going to bring to you as an individual or to your organisation in the future.
Yeah, Victoria, could I just come in on that one? You know,
Yep.
and I also, if you look at it not just of kind of achieving a badge at the end of the day, it's kind of, you know, what are you actually going to gain from going through the process itself? So, you know, I'm an absolute advocate of kind of looking at all of the potential qualifications and saying, actually, you know, what am I getting to gain for kind of dedicating 18 months or 6 months of my time into actually achieving this? So, you know, for some, the kind of, you know, sort of academic route or experiential route, you know, you will gain, you know, various different you know, benefits and value out of doing that. So I think, you know, the badge is great at the end, but also think about the time that you're going to be dedicating to actually sort of undertaking that qualification or chancellorship process.
Could I add something to that? I think
Yeah.
I think value is partly a function of where you are. So as I alluded to, CHPP is becoming more and more common in the UK. I think it's got really good traction in the UK. I guess I've spent a little bit of my time working out in the Middle East, and I know CHPP has got a bit of traction there, but so have other standards. I think so one, I would say, it's contextual. Wherever you are will probably determine the value of whether it's CHPP or something else. I looked at other standards when I was thinking about CHPP, and I guess the conclusion I came to was that CHPP as a standard tests you on what you've done. It doesn't test you on what you've read in a book and can remember in an exam. It tests you on what you've done. So what that also means is that if you work in life sciences or in infrastructure, or you work in the Ministry of Defence, or wherever you work and whatever you do, that experience is all valid. So it's not necessarily a sort of very fixed set of knowledge and experiences you need to demonstrate. The whole point of the standard is that you can demonstrate you've met the standard wherever it is you work and whatever it is you do from a project perspective.
Perfect. So sadly that the time's gone really quickly, and that's come to the end of our session, but I just want to sort of thank the participants for your questions. Any ones that we haven't been able to get round to answering in this session, APM will take them back and provide the responses. Again, take a look at the Chartered website around the support services that are available, and if you have any questions, you can direct them to our Chartered team. From myself and APM and participants, thank you both for your participation today. It's been truly appreciated, and I hope individuals have gained value from this discussion.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Victoria. And thank you for the guests.
You.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.